Hey guys, it's Tricky Nick here. Mario Golf Super Rush is just a couple of months away, and I am so excited to play a new Mario sports game. In today's video, PK and I will each be predicting what we think the roster of this new Mario Golf game will look like. If you don't know who PK is, he's another great Nintendo YouTuber, so if you haven't heard of him, go check his channel out with the link in the description. Anyways, let's get started with my predictions for the roster of Mario Golf Super Rush. Since Camelot developed Mario Tennis Aces, I'm assuming since they're also developing this game, the roster is going to be similar in size and release method. For those of you who don't know, Mario Tennis Aces had about 30 characters, with many of them releasing slowly over time as DLC. So for this roster, I'm going to predict about 30 characters. Starting with who's already confirmed for the game, we have Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Wario, Waluigi, Yoshi, Bowser, Donkey Kong, Toad, me, and King Babam. In my opinion, I think all of these characters will be available at the launch of the game, except for maybe King Babam. He seems pretty obscure for a launch character, but who knows? Anyways, let's get on to my actual predictions. The confirmed characters brings the roster space left down to 18. So I thought I would start off with the very likely characters and work my way down to the more obscure characters as we get more towards the end. To start this list off, we have Rosalina. Rosalina has been in various Mario spin-offs, establishing herself as a mainstay in the Mario series. This makes her extremely likely for the game. Up next we have Pauline. Similar to Rosalina, Pauline has begun to establish herself as a mainstay due to the immense success of Super Mario Odyssey. In fact, Pauline was even in Mario Tennis Aces, so that makes her even more likely to be in this game. Next up is Bowser Jr., Diddy Kong, and Birdo. If Bowser, Donkey Kong, and Yoshi can play, why shouldn't their counterparts join in on the fun? I think some generic enemies are also likely to be added in this game too. Personally, I think Monty Mole, Chargin' Chuck, and Pokey should be added. These additions would be really funny to see, especially an enemy wearing a football uniform playing golf. Also, I just really like Pokey and Monty Mole. I was originally gonna have Goomba in there, but you'll see why I changed my mind. Since Chain Chomp was such a cool addition to Mario Tennis Aces, I think a weird character like that should be added to Super Rush. I think Marty the Thwomp or just straight up a Thwomp would be hilarious, and before you go asking me how a Thwomp would golf, leave it to Nintendo to figure out. I know this is crazy, but what if King Babam wasn't the only king in the roster? I think Nintendo should go full send with the kings and add King Thwomp, King Goomba, and King Boo as well. Obviously, this would be a bit ridiculous, but the references to Luigi's Mansion and Super Mario 64 would create great roster diversity. I was also going to include King Ollie because he would be a nice nod to Paper Mario, but that's way too unlikely. With all that said, my 30 slots had already been filled, but I was still a bit unsatisfied with my roster. So I decided we should tweak it a little bit to make it better. Rather than having Pokey, Monty Mole, and Chargin' Chuck, I decided I would replace all those characters with more relevant additions. I eventually decided to replace these characters with Toadette, Lubba, and Cappy. Toadette is an extremely common addition to the Mario spin-offs, and she would make sense to be in the game with Toad. Lubba is an obscure character from Super Mario Galaxy 2, and I think his inclusion would fit the extremely wacky and obscure character slot. Finally, I chose Cappy because he would be an insane addition. I think that he could have different costumes that reference different captures from Mario Odyssey. I mean, imagine if you could swap over to golfing as a T-Rex. This brings me to my next point, costumes. Mario Tennis Aces had a couple of costumes for each character, so I think Camelot should try to make a few unlockable costumes for each character. I think the easiest way to do this would be to add some costumes from Mario Kart Tour, like Taxi Driver Waluigi and Cowboy Wario. And obviously I think Cappy could just be some of the captures from Mario Odyssey as his costumes. Anyways, that's all I have for my thoughts on the Mario Golf Super Rush roster. But what do you think, PK?
Okay, so now it's my turn to predict who I think will be in the roster for Mario Golf Super Rush. Obviously, we already know who 12 of the characters in Super Rush are, as they've essentially been confirmed through the trailer for the game, and so that leaves us with 18 more spots. I'm going to quickly cover the characters that Nick mentioned in his predictions first, and then I'll move on to characters that are unique to my roster. And so to start us off, we've got Rosalina and Luma. But unlike Nick, I think these two will be featured in the game as one individual character. This duo are essentially a staple in the more recent Mario spin-off games, and so I don't don't think it would be a surprise to anyone if these two were to be in Super Rush. Next up, we've got Bowser Jr., Birdo, Diddy Kong, and Toadette. If Bowser, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, and Toad are going to appear in Super Rush, I don't see why their companions wouldn't appear in Super Rush either. Toadsworth is a fairly unknown character that I think has a good shot at joining Super Rush's roster. He's appeared in many of the Mario spin-off games as a referee, a statue, and in Mario Super Sluggers he was even a playable character. And so I think it's time that he makes a return. Also, Toadsworth just looks like the type of man that would enjoy a bit of golf. Boom Boom and Pom Pom are two of the reoccurring bosses that you fight in Mario 3D Land and Mario 3D World. And since those games, these two Koopalings have appeared in Mario Sports Superstars, Mario and Sonic at the 2016 Olympics, and Boom Boom was even in Mario Tennis Aces. So seeing as these two have been included in some of the more recent Mario Sports games, I think they have a good shot at joining Super Rush's roster. Now, the Goomba is arguably one of the most iconic Mario enemies of all time, and so I think he'll definitely be a playable character in Super Rush. Now, some of you might be asking, well, how is he supposed to hold a golf club? And well, for one, that's not for me to decide, and for two, in Mario Super Sluggers he was more than capable of holding a baseball bat, and so I can't see why he wouldn't be able to swing a golf club. Also, in the trailer for Super Rush, a Mii is shown talking to a Goomba, so that could potentially mean that you could unlock a Goomba as a playable character. When the story mode was shown in the trailer, not only was the Mii seen talking to a Goomba, the Mii was also seen talking to a Hammer Bro, and Shy Guys, Monty Moles, and Koopa Troopers were also seen with speech bubbles above their head, which I'm assuming means that you can talk to them and that they'll be playable characters in the game. Professor Egad is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated Mario characters, and so I think he deserves a spot in Super Rush's roster. And seeing as Luigi's Mansion 3 sold extremely well, I think he actually has a decent shot at becoming a playable character in Super Rush. Also, as a nice touch, he could even use one of his inventions to hit the ball instead of having to use a golf club. The Queen Bee, or the Honey Queen from the Mario Galaxy games, is who I think will fill the character spot for the weird and obscure category that Nick was talking about earlier, as it would just be really weird to play golf as a huge bee. Now, seeing as there were so many DLC characters in Mario Tennis Aces, I think it's safe to assume that there will be some DLC characters in Mario Golf Super Rush. And so I tried to pick 3 DLC characters for Super Rush that would not only be a huge surprise, but characters that people would actually want to play as. For DLC character number 1, we have Cappy. Everyone loved Super Mario Odyssey, and a lot of people want Cappy for Smash Ultimate and Mario Kart 9. And so I think him being included in Super Rush would be a nice middle ground. And who the hell wouldn't want to play golf as a literal hat? People around the world were heartbroken when Petey Piranha wasn't included in the roster for Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and so I think he should get a spot in the roster of Super Rush. Also, seeing as he's been in a heap of Mario sports titles in the past, I think he actually has a good chance at getting a spot on Super Rush's roster. And the final character that I decided to go with is Mr. L. Mr. L is probably the only character that I've mentioned that does not have a good chance of becoming a playable character in Super Rush. And yes, I know this is meant to be a prediction video, but it would just be amazing if Mr. L were to be featured in this game, as not only would people go berserk over his inclusion, but it would also be a good nod to the older Paper Mario games. And that's just about it from me. Obviously, these are just my predictions and hopes for the roster, so don't get too mad if you didn't agree with every single word I said.
Well, that concludes our roster predictions for Mario Golf Super Rush. Let me know whose roster you guys liked more in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one.